I do think, and I still believe that if you master or you're very good at the mental side of golf, I think it transcends into everything else almost more than any other sport because of that time frame. You're on your own and you have too much time to think about things. You have to really control how you talk to yourself, how you think, being able to switch off, being able to stay present. And that's probably the biggest element mentally of golf that is different to so many other sports.
What gives us our edge? And how do we go beyond it? How thin is the line between taking part and tipping into victory? What inspires those moments of rare advantage, down to the millimetre, down to the microsecond, that change the shape of a race? Is it faith, talent, focus, or sheer determination? Are winners born or made? And what happens when things go wrong, or when it all goes right? Welcome to The Edge. We'll be talking to people operating at the very edge of possibility. From athletes to actors, and from artists to entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Theo van den Broeke, and we'll be giving you the fuel you need to get in the zone and leave your limits in the dust. Watch out. This is The Edge, a podcast by TAG Heuer. Tommy Fleetwood, welcome to The Edge with TAG Heuer. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Where in the world are you right now?
I'm in Orlando right now in America, so I have a week before the first major of the year. So it's like a practice week, a prep week this week, and then eventually I'll be flying back to the UK at some point. I've been away for a while now.
Oh, have you? Okay. So you missed the reopening of the golf courses yesterday, which is obviously a very exciting moment.
I've been one of those lucky ones that's been playing golf the whole time, just not in the UK. So I'll give everybody in the UK a day of golf without me.
Okay, that's good to hear. So I guess what we always ask people on our podcast is to kind of give us a little bit of a brief lowdown on how they got to where they are and how Tommy Fleetwood became Tommy Fleetwood. So tell us a little bit about you, Tommy.
Okay, that's a good starting point. So I'm 30 years old. I guess the most important things, I'm a father, husband, stepfather, a son. I think those are the most important things. I've been a professional golfer touring the world professionally since I was 19. I played, I took up the game as a kid and in all honesty, I've done very little else in terms of, I've done nothing else in terms of my career and sort of when I was a kid and when I was in school, that was always my interests outside of school. I left high school when I was 16 and gave myself a couple of years to play full time rather than going to college or getting a job. And at that point, I was doing really, really well at the game. And turned pro a year later. I played for the national team, traveled the world doing that. Wow. And that's basically been it, really. It's been my interest, like I say, since a kid. I did all the normal kid things at school, all of that. I contemplated going to drama school when I left high school.
Did you?
Wow. It was the only other thing really that interested me. I studied drama at GCSE and did well, and that was like the only. And I mean, it was. I didn't. Studying wasn't massively my thing. I wasn't. I always did the bare minimum to get me by. I look back and think, I kind of wish I'd done more. I tell my kids to do more, but I wasn't the best example of it. And that was the only other thing that kind of interests me. And obviously, when you leave school and you decide you're gonna, I didn't put that much pressure on myself, but I kind of threw all my eggs in one basket and tried the golf thing, and it worked out.
It's quite a brave thing to do. I mean, were your parents fully kind of on side with that decision at the time?
They've always been really supportive. Like I was, I've been very lucky to have parents like that would, the only thing that they ever asked really was that I give it 100% whatever I was doing. try as hard as I can, enjoy it, and that was, pretty much all they ever asked of me. So they were completely on board with that, and it is a big commitment for all of you involved, I guess, knowing that the son is kind of planning on doing one thing and not really giving anything else a look. But like I say, it worked out, and they obviously had a lot of faith in me.
Of course. I mean, so what was your kind of, I mean, you said that golf was a big part of your life from the get-go, but what's your kind of earliest memory of golf? What's the kind of thing that sticks in your mind?
I think my earliest memory for myself, I remember hitting golf shots when I was 5 or 6. I remember, my dad always playing, my older brother played, so being a little kid, I just wanted to join in more than anything else, and I got hooked pretty quickly. I was pretty good at it. Like, I could always hit it, and that was the enjoyable thing about it. Like, I could hit the ball, so and then those guys playing, I just wanted to be around and do that, and that was it. I think I played my first tournament when I was 7, and I had no idea. I'd never played with anyone else, really. I remember that distinctly. I'd never played with anybody else. I didn't know how good I was supposed to be, how good they were. I just wanted to play. I shot 131 and finished second to last because somebody gave up and didn't finish. But that wasn't the point. It was just a day of like my first event, and like that was it really. So I had, I think being a kid, I had nobody to sort of compare myself with. I just wanted to play, and that was it.
I mean, there's something quite lovely about that in the sense you hear a lot of sports people, when they start, there's quite a lot of pressure on them to do it, whether that's from parents or whatever. And there's also that kind of idea that if you're not really, really, really good from the get-go, and it sounds like you were good, but I mean, that could put someone off very quickly, a tournament where you come second to last. Do you know what I mean? So you've obviously persevered because you really enjoyed it, which is
I think it's getting harder and harder to be like that as well, just with everything that comes with social media in this day and age. I just think everything's out in the open a bit more. I was probably one of the last set of kids that didn't have that. Like I was just, we could just play and turn up and nothing really mattered that much. But yeah, I never I guess I was lucky. I didn't get deflated or anything by shooting that score. I always laugh at it now because I can easily tell that story to kids, and I think it's a helpful one. Like, I finished second to last, shot 131, and they laugh and say, "Oh, I played terrible," when they shot like 80. So when I can tell that one, it kind of helps.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got your son, Frankie, Franklin. So do you kind of? I've seen videos of you kind of playing with him or kind of guiding him at least. How do you approach that? Does he have a real interest in it? Is it something that you'd kind of want him to go into? How do you navigate?
He enjoys doing everything, and he enjoys hanging out with us and watching us play. So he wants to join in. I can sort of sense I'm in for a lifetime of him not really listening to what I have to say about it. I can see that already, even at 3.5. But I like his interest, and I obviously love him wanting to, even at this age, I love him just being interested and wanting to play and enjoy in a game that has brought me a lot of joy, I guess. I know 100% that there's never going to be any pressure from me for him to do anything that he wants. I'll just guide him in the best way possible. But it's really, really nice just standing with him and hitting some balls or doing some putting. It's a really nice thing to do. Like, I just enjoy that so much.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the competition element, it's a wonderful bonding thing. I mean, I used to do it with my dad, and we were both absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
So you married your wife Claire in 2017, and she's also your manager. Have you kind of created a circle around you so all of your kind of social and family life are connected to your professional life, and how do you manage that? And how do you keep that work-life balance? It must be tricky.
Yeah, I think it seems to have really like turned out that way. I don't think it was ever anything planned or anything like that. Obviously Claire is a great example. What, was my manager, and then we fell in love, and things progressed that way. I'm unbelievably lucky that we have that relationship where we can just separate it so easily. We were just laughing yesterday because she tells me to come into the office when she's got something work related to say. So I have to make that walk to the office to go and discuss something. And it's always worked out great. And I think the one thing that I have is, so I have the people that I really, really can trust, that care about me as a person. And I always think that's the most important thing out of it all, that they, especially you say Claire cares about me more than any golf shot, any deal, anything like that. She cares more about me than any of that by a long, long way. And I think that's so, so important. And the same goes for other people around me. Like I say, it was never planned. And I think I'm also lucky in the fact that I have people that are very good at what they do that I just happen to be very close with, that I have a close relationship with. So that all works out. It's, nothing's ever final or anything like that, but I do know that I have lasting relationships going through life, whether it involves work or not, with those people.
It's an interesting one, I guess, because you look at a lot of very, very successful players of individual sports. So whether, it's in tennis or golf, and, often there are those family connections that they have around them. And I guess that must be a very important thing, because, as you say, if it's not a team that you're on, you need people on your team that really, really care and want you to do well, as emotionally as well as kind of in terms of the sport.
For sure, the trust element is huge, and that emotional support because I probably have met a sportsman that doesn't live and breathe what they do, but it does, it is your life in a way. You completely live and breathe it. And, so having that emotional support and the people that just know just what to do because they know you so well, whether it be you just need somebody to sit next to you and not say anything, or whether you need a kick up the arse, or whether you need, just somebody to take you and do something completely different, and just know that without needing any other information or needing to be nudged, I think is so, so important and such a help.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been an interesting year for everyone insofar as they've kind of been working in close confines with most of their family, maybe not in the same way that you have. How has the last year been for you? I mean, you said you've been playing a lot, just not in the UK. Talk me through what's been happening.
So the first lockdown, which was a year ago now, you look back on that and nobody knew what was happening at all. But that first lockdown I definitely saw it and found it as time that I'd never had, for sure. And time given to us that, I've always been on the road. And we had, all of a sudden, you're given 2-3 months of waking up in the same bed, waking up to Claire every day, spending a full day with your family and figuring out things to do, but all together. And it was a beautiful time for us. I do wish it had come at better circumstances, but for us on a personal level, the time given to us was amazing. I think golf was one of the first things to start, pretty much. And it started over here in America. And, eventually I left it a few weeks and then decided to travel, and we did the quarantine and everything and started playing. And aside from there being no crowds, life went on relatively normal from a touring golfer's perspective in America, playing the sport. And because of my work, we've sort of dipped in and out of the UK, and in terms of experiencing the lockdowns or what's been going on. And we were home over Christmas and everything, which was different. And then we had to travel again. I've been very, very lucky being able to do my job, and kind of we've missed out on a lot of the difficult period in the UK. So that's been it's been lucky for us, really.
Yeah, amazingly. I mean, it's an interesting one, kind of looking at just the conversation around golf that's happened since the lockdowns, and the kind of, in a way, the way that the world has slowed down and kind of taken those pleasure moments and moments with family and doing things that aren't kind of so frenetic, as a real thing. Do you think that's going to benefit golf as a sport? Do you see that do you feel like there's going to be an upturn, or is that a very abstract connection?
Well, I would hope it to. I know golf being the outside sport it is, and easy to social distance, it has definitely, from that perspective, sort of gave the sport a new popularity in a way. And I genuinely do believe in golf being having a lot of benefits physically and mentally, and being able to do something with your family. I have lived the sport, so obviously I believe that, but I do, I hope that it does bring more people into the sport and people get a lot of benefits and joy out of it, because I think that's what it can bring. So I hope so in the future.
And kind of on that point, and talking about family, I mean, and in terms of golf today and back then, like, how has it changed as a sport? I mean, this is kind of a big question, I guess, but how has it changed as a sport since you started, since your father's generation? What have been the shifts, the prime shifts?
I think in a similar way to a lot of things, golf and golfers have kept improving through technology, through knowledge, through a lot of things. It is, I mean, it's a more athletic sport than it's ever been. I kind of hate to say it because I don't play the game for this reason, but the money that is involved means it is like the margins and everything. It becomes a lot more of a competitive sport. I'm not going to get like too deep into it, but I think a lot of people talk about the pace of play and how slow golf is as a sport, but I don't think people don't give enough recognition for. There is so much money on the line these days when you're playing golf. We play for an obscene amount at times. It's hard to make a decision in 40 seconds sometimes. There probably is more of a separation these days between the higher echelons of professional golf and playing at an amateur level, club level, because of those kind of things. But definitely in terms of an athletic sport, in terms of technology, and in terms of what is up for grabs, it is different than when I was a kid. And for me, I've gone through the transition of playing a game that I love just for the enjoyment of it, which I actually still do. I still transition from, I'll come home and I'll play with my kids and just enjoy doing anything. Like I could shoot 131 again and love it just as much. And then I transition into playing for my livelihood, and every shot from a Thursday morning at 7:30 until Sunday at 6 p.m, every shot means the same, and it is it's a lot of like mental and physical energy that it takes up on you.
Sure. I mean, do you think those changes are good for the sport? I mean, I imagine the athleticism one, but is fantastic. But in terms of the money, does that make it? Is it increased pressure? I assume it is. It must be at the level that you're playing.
It does increase pressure. The other side of it is you can financially set up your family for life at an earlier age, which is great. And I think it probably gives golfers now, you're not seeing it yet, but I think you might see golfers start retiring at an earlier age. I'm not saying, it's nothing like a sport like football or anything where 35 is your limit. But I definitely, I have a feeling there'll be people that retire at an earlier age these days than keep playing all the way through the lives until they're 60. Golf to me is constantly getting better. I think it's, and all the technology and everything makes it easier for any level of golfer to play, which can only make it more enjoyable, which I think is a good thing.
But it'd be good to talk a little bit about that technology, because obviously there's the TAG Heuer connected watch, which there's a golf version, and it would be good to kind of hear from you what the most exciting innovations have been and the ones that have kind of helped you most and helped your game.
I've spent the last 10, 12 years playing and spending time with people at the highest end of golf, whether it be the best amateurs, whether it be the best professionals in the world. I have a 12 and a 14-year-old that are obsessed with the game. that play, every day, and I have a dad who's 65 who plays once, twice a week, who is like your regular golfer, and I see how the watch helps every single, all those versions of the players. I one of the kids will say, this, he would like to know this, or he likes wearing the watch because it told him this yardage, or, oh, look at that, I've hit, my tee shots here, and he likes it for that reason. Or my dad will like it for, oh, my 7-iron won't carry the water when I always thought it would, or, think like there's things like that. And then I will see it from a perspective where I, recently in January was testing new clubs and go out on the golf course, and the watch helps me do that because it can track, how far these clubs are going and everything on the golf course. And, there's few things really that can relate to every level of golfer and help them individually, with, and you don't have to go and have a lesson. You don't have to practice on the range for 2 hours. You're getting information straight away, and it's helping all those levels. And I think, I think it's great for that. And I've experienced it on all those levels.
If there was a gadget that could be invented to help your game, what would that gadget be, and what would it do?
Well,
it's a little curveball.
that is a curveball without hitting a shot for me.
Yeah. Apart from that,
without hitting a shot for me, I don't know. I think, for ease of everything, having a gadget that is telling you exactly what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong, I think is the best version of helping anybody. And again, I see it in my kids. Like my oldest stepson will hit the ball great all day, and he'll putt terrible, but then he'll finish and he'll go straight to the range because that's just what he wants to do. Where having something that's going to tell him, well, you need to practice your putting, because again, they don't listen to me. So, no matter what I say, it kind of gets shot down. But maybe they will look at something that they've tracked and put in themselves and say, oh, this is what I need to do. And actually being able to improve by not doing anything different, by just having something right in front of you and having a little bit more knowledge, I think is, I do think that's the best kind of gadget, because I still believe in figuring things out yourself as well and trying to get better yourself. So I think that's really good.
That's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I guess it'll be good to talk a little bit about the human side as well, obviously, of golf. Traditionally, it's been a very specific demographic that have engaged with golf, and I imagine that's changed. Has it changed? Has it changed in terms of gender and class and race? And
I think it's changing and growing all the time, and I think that's so important for the game. I mean, I love seeing kids on a range and enjoying the game, and the truth is, for me, if we still had to wear a jacket and tie and play golf, I would still be doing the same thing. I would still play golf, and I would put a jacket and tie and I would play. It doesn't mean I want to do that or I think it's right, but I would.
Right.
But I don't think people would start playing the game if that was the case. And I've said it for a long time that to make the game more accessible, certain rules have to just be given some leeway. And kids is kind of my thing. I always look at that, and I always want to see those guys enjoying and starting the game and picking that up, because I think that is the way to grow the game, and I think it's very, very good for them. So I obviously am not, don't look like the typical golfer in a way, not for any reason than I just look different, not that I try to, but I think being able, if you're 12 years old or 14 years old and being able to turn up to a golf club in just, your normal t-shirt and shorts and trainers and pick up a golf club and just be able to go out there and play a little bit and enjoy it in the way you want to is so important for the future of the game.
Absolutely. But you have cultivated your own kind of very unique style, which is appealing in its own way. And personally, I look at like Arnold Palmer or whatever, and the glamour of that. And there's a glamour to what you do. Like, you'd have a very specific thing, and I think there is something nice about that. I mean, I guess that is the same across all sports, isn't it? If you're interested in that side of things, it's going to appeal to you. But I guess as long as it doesn't alienate anyone is the key.
Well,
right?
yeah, and I think being able to transition as closely as possible to being able to wear something that I would walk around at home if I was, out with Claire shopping or something, to then going out on the golf course and it being doesn't have to be exactly the same look, but something similar. I believe in people being comfortable. Completely. I completely agree that. I think shoes, footwear, we spent all day on our feet in shoes, and I keep going on about how lucky I am. I have a partner like Nike, so they've just brought out a shoe that's an Air Max golf shoe. Well, I'll stand in an Air Max all day, like like that. But that kind of thing, you go back to shoes, and somebody's got to put a pair of leather heavy boots on with spikes in and play in them. Well, like, I'm not too keen on that for 6 hours. Like, I would rather, I'd much rather wear a comfy shoe and a trainer. And again, if there's a way of playing football or tennis in a pair of shoes and you can play golf equally in them, something like that, I just think can only help the game. And if I make a difference in people looking at me and see me in a pair of Air Max and a crew neck sweater that's a bit oversized, and they'll think, oh, like, you can play golf in that, I'd do that. Well, then great. Like, I would love that to be the case, and I would love somebody to take it up, because they think, oh, you can actually, like, just, you don't have to look like, you don't have to wear a cardigan, even though I love cardigans. Like, you don't have to wear a cardigan to go out and play. Something like that, I would love that to make a difference.
Sure thing. I mean, it would be remiss of me not to bring up your hair as style and grooming director of GQ. You have, like, you've got kind of Instagram accounts dedicated to it. But it is interesting because, if you were a footballer or a tennis player, no one would say a thing. But because you're a golfer, I think it's within that frame of reference. It's such a thing. What are your thoughts on it? I mean, do you find it funny? Is it something you cultivate a little bit?
Well, I do find it funny because, again, like, if I walk around in Manchester or London, well, who would ever take a second look at me for having hair that's past my ear? Exactly. It's not a big deal, but in golf it is. There's 2 or 3 people that have longish hair, and like last week I was in Austin and had some friends there, and there was one of the kids had long curly hair, and he said, yeah, I grew it because you've got your hair long, and I knew like I could. And again, like, you don't realize such a daft little thing, because I have a bit longer hair because my wife prefers me with longer hair as well. It's like just my thing a little bit. A kid grew his hair and feels like he can play golf on a golf course because of that. And you think it's nothing, but in a very traditional sport, it obviously means something.
Of course.
But yeah, having an Instagram account for your hair is kind of cool. Is neat in a way.
It's like Connell's chain.
Getting a direct message from your hair is nice.
Yeah, exactly. So growing up, like, who were your idols? Was there anyone that you'd kind of love to challenge to a game now? The only idol I really, really had. So I grew up in the era where, like, I was 6 years old when Tiger Woods won his first Masters. I remember walking into the house and my dad saying, this guy's going to be really, really good. But Tiger was never, like, my hero. He was always the best, and I loved watching Tiger Woods play golf, but he was never my idol. Ernie Els was my idol. I went to a clinic with him when I was 8, at like this junior clinic, and watched him hit balls, and he had a picture taken with me, which I've still got somewhere. And he always kind of stood out to me. Like I just, I loved his swing and his mannerisms and how he played the game and everything. So he became my golfing idol and my sporting idol. And as I grew up and turned professional, I got the chance to meet him a couple of times. And you hear it all the time. People say, never meet your heroes. Well, Ernie Els was the opposite of that expression. He was so nice. I've had like 2 or 3 amazing moments with him. I've played golf with him. I was sat in 2019 when I was going into the Open final round and I had a chance of winning it, which is my ultimate dream. He was having breakfast on the next table and started talking me through, what I should do on the front 9 to win the Open. And I'm like, well, it's the coolest thing ever. Like, I didn't win, but that particular morning, I'm like, my hero's telling me I'm going to win the Open here.
That's incredible.
So that's cool. And he was like the only guy I ever had that I tried to emulate. Really, that was the only one I was interested in.
Obviously, golf is very different to other sports in the sense that it's completely solo and it goes on, over a very long period of time, and it's kind of endurance in a different way. How does that change the way you play the game compared to other sports? That maybe is a difficult question to answer, but also how do you deal with the pressure? Because that must be like a really slow build up over a long period of time. Like what are your techniques?
I think you obviously get, you get used to that. And I think golf brings a different kind of pressure. You have to, the two things are it's long, like it's 4 days, 5 hours a day of playing, and whether you have a putt of 6 inches or you're hitting a drive 320 yards, like they all mean the same. Like you don't get, nothing, you don't get a shot back, you don't hit a bad one and it doesn't really mean anything. They all have a massive effect. And the other thing is you have time in between them where you have to think, or you have to try not to think. So you make a mistake, well, you have 10, 15 minutes to dwell on it before you hit the next one. And that brings a different challenge than it being a very reactive sport. I do think, and I still believe that if you, not even sure anybody's done it, but if you master or you're very good at the mental side of golf, I think it transcends into everything else almost more than any other sport because of that time frame, because of having to, you're on your own and you have too much time to think about things. You have to really control how you talk to yourself, how you think, being able to switch off, being able to stay present. Because so many things have the chance to come into your mind with that space of time. So I do think that's probably the biggest element mentally of golf that is different to so many other sports.
How do you that sounds like mindfulness. How do you enact that personally speaking?
I got into meditation a while ago when I was struggling. I was struggling with my game a little bit, and like I say, anybody that's a sportsman, your sport goes through your life. Like you live and breathe it. That's just the nature of it. People bring work home, whether it be at an office, whether it be wherever you are. Like you can bring it home easily. And I started meditating back in 2016 when I was sort of trying to get back on track, trying to get my game back on track, just because I was struggling with confidence. Really, I was struggling with confidence, and I was struggling not to think about results and other things. And that really, really helped me. And to this day, it's something that I go in and out of, that meditation, but it makes a big difference if you can be in the routine of practicing mindfulness or anything like that. And these days you have a lot of apps as well to help you and stuff like that. So that's great. But I do think that, plays a big part in it. And some people are lucky naturally that they are gifted in a mind that just keeps them very, very present, or they have a forgetfulness that is a gift, things like that. But for the majority of people, it always takes work. And like going to the gym, like practicing my golf swing, it will always come and go. And one of the great things about today is I think a lot of people talk about it a lot more, and there's ways of learning about it that are much more accessible than they've ever been.
Yeah. I mean, do you talk about that because you had a tough time in 2016, 2017, right? When your kind of game went a certain direction. I mean, would you talk to other other kind of players about it, other golfers?
I never did, and I think you're constantly competing against people, so it's always a difficult one to open up because you feel like you've got to go and play against them in, an hour or something. So it's always a difficult one. I think when I, eventually when my game came back and I had an amazing 2017 after a really bad 15 and 16 or whatever years it was, a couple of people would come to me and ask me about certain things, and I, would very happily and love talking about it. And I, done a lot of reading about things, and I never struggled badly with any kind of mental issues or anything. I was just trying to rebuild my confidence, while I was, getting my game back, and it was, small things, but that was just what I was doing. And but I do think, talking does help. And again, we don't really live in a sport where you want to talk about it because it's a competitive sport. I've always found journaling being very, very helpful. That's my way of talking it through, I guess. But yeah, it's not like we have a team of 20 other players or 15 players like a football team or a rugby team where we could maybe just say something to each other and talk about it. It's a very individual sport and a very competitive sport.
Sure. I mean, I think that's a really interesting point, particularly if there are kind of younger listeners listening who are kind of interested in getting into golf, because, that idea that there can be that conversation and dialogue is probably quite heartening. I mean, what advice would you give to younger people coming into golf now who kind of want to follow in your footsteps?
I would want people to be able to develop the skill of being able to deal with social media. I think that's massive. I think that's so important. I think it's one of the biggest things today. Having the ability to put it to the back of your mind, or not worry about what people say. And I would tell people to not. And it's a funny one because results are what drives everything. That's absolutely how you make your living and all of that. But I would say the ability to just try and make yourself better without worrying about any kind of results and enjoying the process of that. I would want people to be great, kids especially. I'd want them to be great at those things and go from there.
And that social media point is quite an interesting one, because you would almost assume that actually to do your sport, you don't necessarily need to be that active on social. Is it really important, for someone doing what you do?
Well, I think what happens now is everybody wants to maximize themselves as as much as possible professionally, and whether that be, being great for your sponsors, being great as an individual brand. Social media is very, very important. I think there are a lot of benefits from it. You learn a lot from social media. You want to be on there because there's a lot of things on there that you can read or learn about. You want to keep up to date with things. So I just think, it's not, I don't know whether it is unrealistic, but telling, if you talk to my kids, telling them to not go on Instagram or something, it seems very unrealistic. So I think rather than saying you're never going to go on it, I think, teaching them, it should probably be on the school curriculum, social media training or something. It's much more, it's such a big thing now and such real life. I think it should be probably something that's out there and something that you get taught in school. So, telling somebody that they're not going to go on it just seems, like it's not going to happen.
Marcus Rashford had school meals. You can have social media. I love.
There you go. Keeping up with him will be a good.
Yeah. So my final question, Tommy Fleetwood, is for a man who's travelled many places. I imagine you've played on pretty much all of the courses that you would most like to play on. Are there any that you haven't played on that you'd really love to have a crack at?
There's a few. It's funny, really. There's probably closer to home. I feel like so many people do these touristy trips to Ireland or Northern Ireland and play certain courses in Scotland that I still haven't played. That, you know, there's definitely things I want to do in the future. So what I did, I grew up, or I started playing on a local municipal, and for some reason, anytime I like drive past one wherever I am in the world, I have like an affection to this local municipal. There's probably like, I would love to do a tour of them like one day and play like bunch and seeing people like that. And there's, you know, on the other end, there's a ton of beautiful courses that I haven't played that I would love to play just because I like golf. But in general, you know, I go places and I end up playing somewhere and, you know, think, no, I'm getting paid to do this. Like I get paid to play St Andrews or Augusta or TPC Sawgrass, or, you know, all these places that people, you know, dream of doing. Like I do it on a regular basis. So yeah, but there's a ton. Like I say, like there's a lot of courses that I would still love to play.
Does it still feel like a privilege to do what you do?
Oh, massively. You know, you have your days where you don't feel that way, like you feel stressed out, and you feel like you know that it's not happening for you, or you feel like it's more effort than what it should be. But an unbelievably privileged human being, I've got to say.
Fantastic. Tommy Fleetwood, on that note, you've been a wonderful guest. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much.
At The Edge. Enjoy the rest of your day in beautiful Orlando.
Thanks, Teo.
Thank you for joining us at The Edge, a podcast by TAG Heuer. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. The Edge is also an online magazine. Go to magazine.tagheuer.com for more articles, interviews, and photo series that bring together our love of watches and our desire to push ourselves to the edge of our limits. I'm your host, Theo van den Broeke. Until next time, keep an eye out. This is The Edge.